IPOs, let's talk about real estate sector. That is a sector which is in vogue. And to take our conversation forward, let's connect with Rahul Thomas, Director, Suraj Estate Developers. Why is everybody excited about real estate suddenly? I mean, is it the cycle has come back? Is it consolidation which has happened? This is one sector where everybody is saying that it's never been so great.
So I think we are in the starting of the sector where there's a climb in the overall progress of the sector in general. We're seeing a huge demand across our segments, whether it is value luxury, which is the 1 and 2 BHK homes, also the luxury, and commercial. So this is the first time we are seeing, normally we have the commercial up and the residential down, or sometimes the residential up and the commercial down. But this time we are seeing both in vogue right now, and I think that's clearly shows a sign that the sector is doing very well.
Why are you going public?
So we already have a legacy of since 1986. We've completed over 42 projects, and today, as we speak, we are doing about 0.6 million square feet of carpet area. We have land which is already in advanced stages of approximately 16 lands, which is about 0.75 million. So idea is to use equity right now and hasten the process of upcoming projects, because we have 16 lands to go, and I think equity is important right now in this thing, because earlier we were only concentrating on debt, but I think equity is important right now to kickstart our projects.
Yeah, but what is the equity requirement for, if I were to ask you in greater detail? Is it for land acquisition, or is it actually for building? Because you sublet it to a third party, right?
Yeah, so
the construction.
Yeah, so equity is important because banks are not allowed to fund, of course, land purchases. So what we do is, ideally, we put in our equity to buy the land. We also put in our equity for the approval cost in a typical scenario, and only go for construction finance to a bank. But in the event that if you do not have the equity for your approval cost, then you have to go to NBFCs, which give you that kind of solution, but they charge a higher interest rate. So if you're able to bridge the first two parts and only use construction finance for bringing up the project, the overall feasibility gets better.
What is your requirement right now, your immediate fund
So
requirement?
we will not use our equity to put in land, because we already have 16 lands. So our idea is to put it purely on approval costs for the projects which are already very advanced in stage. So in many cases, I think about 70 to 80% of the projects we have are already IOD ready. So merely put it into construction. Land cost, of course, has been historical. So margins are always going to be better for historical lands.
I look at one number which in a sense tells me where current equity is being used. ROE. ROE from FY22, that is where the normal COVID effect had faded away, has gone from 72% to 18% down. Now, why is there such a large variation?
ROE you're talking about ROE
in terms of the numbers what we have for Suraj Estate, ROE, which is FY22, 77%, FY23, 58%, Q1 FY24 declared DRHP is 18%.
Yeah, so let's talk about the entire full year numbers. So of course, since we are only, the equity is on a smaller base and our PAT is high. So I think equity base was approximately around 58 to 60 for the last financial year, and our PAT was about 32. So that's why the equity is about 58 to 60%.
On average, what are the margins that you make on each project, and what's your outlook on blended margins?
Yeah, so as I told you, we're doing two forms of redevelopment, which is 33/7, which is cessed property where the structures exist prior to 1960. The other form of redevelopment is society redevelopment, which is 33/7B. So in general, 40-45% is what we look as our margins in 33/7, and 30 to 35% is what we see in society redevelopment.
Rahul, we all know that pretty much all of Mumbai is upgrading, but are prices as well going up for land, residential?
So I think it's two factors. Of course, input costs are going high. As we know, construction costs are going high, and finally someone has to pay. So approval cost is also linked to ready reckoner. If ready reckoner goes up, our approval cost goes up. So you have input cost which is going high, and finally, of course, and builders still want to make their margins. So I think it will go up pro rata. But having said that, I don't think it will go up a lot too much. I mean, today, if you want to see velocity, at some point you need to, stop increasing the rates entirely.
Your PAT has grown nearly 5x from FY21. What has really bolstered this, and what are your projections now for the next couple of years?
Yeah. So I think predominantly the PAT has gone up because we've done two commercial deals recently with two institutions where I think the margins were much higher.
Okay.
And apart from that, we've also started a lot of our value luxury and luxury projects. So there was we're doing 13 ongoing sites. I think that has really bolstered the PAT.
Okay, in this pre-issue, promoters have 82%, will come down to 61.5. That's what will happen, right?
No, sir. It's we'll come down to 75.
Okay, maybe promoter group, if I add back that, I'll come to 75, yeah, because I'm adding promoter and promoter group
Yes.
together, okay, 75. So the equity will get diluted and that's how money comes into the company?
Absolutely.
Okay. So promoters are not going to be using any proceeds for their personal purposes. The money actually comes into the company because the
Yes.
equity base goes high.
Absolutely. So this is entirely fresh issuance of shares. So we will be diluting obviously 25% and entirely going into the business. No OFS component in our.
What benchmarks have you set to value the issue? I mean, what is the benchmark you've used?
So of course, the bankers are used a couple of models. So they have a DCF model where they enter into an NAV. That's something which they use. And also they have the other forms of price. EV to your profit to EV to profit ratios. So I think that's how they've valued the business.
How much of your land bank is in Mumbai?
Entirely in Mumbai. In fact, we have 16 land banks entirely spanning from Bandra all the way to Prapadevi.
And the 16 land banks, you've got all the necessary local and all the necessary development clearances.
In most cases, as I told you, 80% of our upcoming land portfolio have approvals in place. So we've already bought the land, we've already paid for certain approval costs. Now we merely have to use the equity to pump up the project where you put in, vacate some tenants if there are tenants on the land. And then obviously if required, take a CF limit or use the project cash flows.
And what's the split between commercial and residential?
So as of now, we're doing in the ongoing sites, we're doing 2 commercial, but in the upcoming portfolio, we have 1 big commercial coming up on Tulsi Pipe Road.
And, asked you this at the get-go, there are a number of established players and a lot of, like Aisha said, the city is going through this huge redevelopment. So what's the take on competition?
So I think there's a big consolidation in general. I think everyone knows that. Whether it's a society who's going for redevelopment, they want to make sure that the builder is credible. He'll be able to complete the project. Yeah. So I think that itself filters a lot of the other developers down. And I think we have that track record of delivering 42 projects. And I think that's where I think we're happy to face the competition because we're in the business since last 37 years.
Okay, good luck with that. Thanks
Thank you so much.
As always for taking the time out and joining in today.